Palestinian-Israeli conflict is a very complicated one. It has historical dimensions to it. It has cultural dimensions. It's an interpretation of modernity. How are we to live in the 21st century?
The Palestinian issue is not a Palestinian one only. It's an Arabic one and Islamic one. And we have to continue in our resistance until the Islamic army liberate the Islamic land from the Zionists who came to occupy it.
They're lying. This is contested, disputed territories. We'll negotiate those claims around a peace table, but not using these bombs.
We're being challenged by certain parties, by certain extremists who want to take the law into their own hands. Islam is not a religion that advocates bombings or suicide bombings or killings of civilians.
مرحبا محمد. This clinic, I have started it to help the people there, the needy patients from the camp and even the surrounding area.
I don't want to argue with anyone about what happened, who is the cause, how to learn from it. For me, as a Palestinian refugee, that I suffered a lot, I learned from that. I don't want anyone to suffer.
I didn't only move to Israel, I've brought my children to the Middle East, and that is a very sobering realization. No one imagined that we'd be in the middle of a terrorist war with the children on the front lines. I've come to the point now where I tell the Palestinians, if you can't understand that we belong here no less than you do, we are no less a part of this landscape than you are, then there's never going to be peace.
It's very hard for soldiers. It's very hard for me. It's very hard for my friends to hit an Arab person or to know that they killed someone. To go home and look at them in their mother's eyes and tell their mother, Ima, I just killed someone. How am I supposed to live with myself?
At one checking point, I was stopped. The soldier was asking for documentation for ID. I didn't have the ID. They asked me to step out of the car. He's like, why don't you hold an ID? And there, punches me in the face. Didn't make sense to me. I felt really frustrated inside. It was so unfair and it was illegitimate.
I don't want to govern a single Palestinian. They should govern themselves. We want that to happen. The reason it's not happening is because they're not satisfied with that. What they want is not a state or a political entity next to Israel. They want a state instead of Israel.
The only solution which will be accepted is the solution which will put an end for our tragedy. I want to return home. I'm still looking for that day. It's a hope for me. Without that, I believe I will continue my struggle.
It's not about politics alone. It's really geography, it's history, it's religion. It's all of those things wrapped up into one. Jews have actually lived in this particular part of the world uninterruptedly for about 2,000 years.
Well, there was the kingdom of David and Solomon, Abraham walked this land. You put a spade into the ground in any archaeological dig for thousands of years, you come up with Hebrew.
If you look at a map of Israel, almost every name leaps out at you as a name that Christians would be familiar with in the Bible. Bethlehem as the birthplace of Jesus is a very important place.
When Islam expands from the Arabian Peninsula and really explodes into what is now the Middle East, it attracts people because it's bringing a new way of life. It is bringing respect for knowledge, respect for other peoples, other tribes, other cultures.
When we speak of Jerusalem, we speak of Palestine. And when we speak of Palestine, we speak of Jerusalem. It is the same. And therefore we say that this land should be governed by a Muslim.
According to Islamic teachings, any land which has once been part of Islam must remain so. And if for any reason it falls into infidel hands, it must be recovered for Islam.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
History has taught us that Palestine was conquered and occupied by several nations. But Palestine has defeated all those occupations, and the Israeli occupation will also be defeated.
The Arabs see themselves as victims of history. They were dominated by the Turks, they were part of the Ottoman Empire, then the British, and then the last half century by the Israelis. So they see layers and layers of domination.